Hello, hello, everybody, and welcome to Celebrate with L.A. Williams. My name is L.A. Williams, and I am so excited to bring to you this very special episode. Today, we are celebrating the one and only Mr. Adesola Osakalumi.
Hey,
Adesola,
thank
how
you, my
are
brother.
you, my friend? How are you?
I am good. I'm well. It's a sunny day outside. I have nothing to
Yes,
complain about. And
I
thanks for
know that's right.
inviting me because
Mhm.
it was a really good surprise.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you for saying yes to this.
Absolutely.
Um, I'm gonna get into a deeper introduction of you in just a couple minutes. But before I do, I
Sure.
want to take a moment to talk about what Celebrate is and what it means to me, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
So this series is a manifestation of a moment I had, a very special moment I had as a very young theater student. I was at Alabama State University, and it was my first time in the theater building seeing a play. I knew nothing about drama, acting, theater, any of it. And I went over and I saw a production of a play called Phaedra by Jean
Mhm.
Racine. It was directed by Dr. Tommy Stewart. And Adesola, it was one of those moments where my life was changed. I was bit by
Mm.
the bug. I was like, uh-oh, I think I didn't found myself. You know, it was one of those things.
Right.
It was incredible. I was so inspired. But the other thing that I remember so much about that moment, and I saw the show 4 times back to back that weekend. I went to every performance after the first one I saw.
Wow.
And I remember feeling so much like I needed to find everybody involved in that production and say thank you to them for what they had done for me, for the inspiration they had given me and everyone else in that audience, for the work they put into that show,
Wow.
and for sharing their gifts. And oh God, that was the genesis of Celebrate. Um, and cut to some years later, I'm living in New York City, and I decide to, or actually, I don't decide. I have the divine inspiration, quite frankly,
Right.
to turn that feeling into this interview platform where I sit down with artists whose work has really given me something that has changed something in me. I sit down with them and I listen to them talk about some of those transformative moments in their life and in their journey as artists and as human beings. And that is how this sort of thing started. And here we are 10 years later, and we're
Mhm.
all pulling through this pandemic, and we're like, let's reopen theater, let's try to come back in a healthier, stronger way,
Right.
let's bring some hope back and all the things that we've been doing. And I personally made a commitment to go out and start seeing shows last fall. I was like, listen, if we're gonna be on the stages, I'm gonna be in the audience, I'm gonna be somewhere supporting my people. And I'm so glad I did start to go see shows, because this winter, mm, I went and got a chance to see, I went out and saw Dominique Morriseau's excellent play, Skeleton Crew, directed by the one and only Ruben Santiago Hudson, and performed by an
Yeah.
outstanding cast. Hey! And choreographed, yes, a play, choreographed and performed by the brilliant, legendary Mr. Adesola Osakalumi. Let me tell you something. Oh, God. Oh, my God. Oh, my God, brother. Your work, mm, was so, is so special. The way you brought to life the play, the production, and most importantly, the people the play is talking about. What I experienced in that audience was the physical embodiment and the storytelling of what it means for our bodies to labor in places like factories and plants and all
Absolutely.
these different things. And I
Absolutely.
know that a part of why I had such a vivid, honest experience was because of your incredible movement that, again, told the story of the rigor and the passion. And guess what? Even the breakdown that happens. And so I said, this is one of the most legendary special performances I have ever seen. I have got to find a way to say thank you to you.
Wow.
And celebrate you and hold space for you and check in on you and ask you how you doing and where you've been and all the things, and hear about your journey and just say thank you, Adesola. It was brilliant work. You are brilliant, legendary performer. And I'm just so glad to be sharing this space with you.
Thank you. That that means a lot to me. I'm moved by your words. You know, I'll jump in since we're talking about Skeleton Crew right now.
Yeah.
Skeleton Crew, like you said, for me was definitely one of those divine projects that happens. I didn't know about it prior to being cast in it. And the way that I found out about it was one of those serendipitous moments that often happens when you are just doing what you do and you don't realize how whatever you have done in the past will influence somebody. So with that being said, a friend of mine, the great choreographer, Darrell Grand Moultrie, reaches out to me and he says, oh, I met with Ruben Santiago Hudson. He's doing this play. He wants movement in it. And he reached out, but I recommended you. I think you're more suited for what he's talking about. Now, of course, I know who Ruben Santiago Hudson is. And I was like, okay, great. I will gladly meet with him. He calls me. We go to the lobby of the Signature Theater. This was 2015, 2016, 2015. And he says his idea for what he envisions in the piece. And he's like, I want robotic movement, I want popping, I want locking, I want that sharp stuff that talks about the factory, that you will be the one-man wrecking crew of bodies on an assembly line. But I also want you to be able to show the Black body at work, to show the amount of labor that often goes into things that we do not see, the amount of hard work that all of our peoples have done, no matter where our peoples have come from, the continent, the Caribbean, or North America. And to show that the unseen work and unseen labor means something, and there's a toll that it takes, but there's also a pride and a precision in all of that. He spoke. If you have met Ruben, he speaks, right? And I was pretty quiet. And I was like nodding, and I said to myself, oh yeah, this is exactly my wheelhouse. There's no way that I can't do this. So after he finished, I said, yeah, I can do it. Very nonchalant, I don't think I got up and did a wave or did any movement. We just talked about what he envisioned. I talked about a little bit about my movement background, and that was it. Okay, rehearsal starts next week. I'll see you there.
Wow.
Now, the funny thing with that is I had a few weeks back, maybe 3 weeks earlier, had a fire, right? A fire in your apartment is nothing nice. It's nothing easy. So I'm still dealing with the after effects of cleaning up, going through the fire department, coming and going to file papers. And I remember that day when I went to meet him, in my haste, I looked under my nails and was like, I still got the soot from, just going through things in the house. So part of me was definitely present at the meeting with Ruben. The other part was still like, it's fire, what's going to happen? So at what for some people would have been a total low point, an opportunity presented itself that 6 years later has borne this fruit. So that's how I got involved initially in Skeleton Crew. And this time around, the mandate that was given to all of us, all the people on the creative team, was to do more, be bigger, be better. It's on Broadway, and there's a certain level of expectation, a certain level of excitement that comes with Broadway just because it's Broadway. And he said, well, I want to do more. I want the stories to be different. I want the stories to be more evocative. And I took that challenge to really use the dance form that I deployed in Skeleton Crew to really be a storytelling vehicle. In the piece, I say that I ran the gamut of hip hop or urban styles, right? But predominantly, I was popping, waving, and social dance. And I think when people hear hip hop or popping or waving, still in 2022, they tend to relegate it to something that is less than artistic, not as viable, in my opinion, as a true art form.
Right.
So my challenge was to be true to the folks that I came up with in the dance and popping world and scene, so that when they come, they'd be like, yo, you were hitting it. You were doing that thing. We saw the control, we saw the technique, we saw the clarity. But then for people who do not know anything about popping, locking, or overall hip hop styles, to say, oh, that transition moved the story forward. I see why this movement element is interspersed in this piece 6 times. So that was my challenge, and I think we were successful. Ruben helmed the great ship, and I spent a lot of time nuancing and going over what every shoulder movement, every head turn, every bop meant. And in many stories and many great comments and supportive comments that I heard post-show, but one comment shortly after we opened, a lady came up, older white lady, like you could tell, a theater goer, a traditional theater goer. And she said, "I love your movement." I said, "Thank you." She goes, and this might sound funny, but I have a question for you. Okay. You choreographed that, right? I said, "Yes." And I started laughing because I understood the surprise was because she knew what she saw. She saw storytelling. She saw movement that, again, in a musical, movement aids and propels the story. She saw that in a play, but had never seen it deployed in this fashion using this dance form. So I said, "Yes." She said, "Well, I don't know a lot about the style of the popping." And as I was explaining to her, but she goes, "You told the story. And no matter who sees it will understand why it's in the piece."
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
that was what we were all going for. It wasn't, I can't even say it was validation. I did not need her external validation. I appreciated her comment and her keen eye, but I'm beyond the point of like, "Oh, you liked it? Okay, now thank you. I'm arrived." So, Skeleton Crew, we did a lot of work on that. And as you know, being in the industry, a piece that opens off Broadway, if it doesn't transfer to Broadway relatively in a short period of time, you can say it's not going to happen for whatever reason. And, the pandemic played a part in that. But 5 years later, to move from off Broadway to Broadway is a huge accomplishment. So, we all viewed it as we have another great opportunity to tell Dominique's story. And for me, as my first Broadway choreographic credit, that's also exciting. Can't look down on that. So it was really great. It was really good, and I'm glad that you saw it. So now we're here talking about it right now.
Exactly. I saw it twice.
Okay.
I saw it twice. It was fabulous. And I saw it actually in 2016 when y'all did it at the Atlantic.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that so much. Let's jump in a little bit. I like to start these interviews off by celebrating the day you were born. And that's meant to have you take us back as far as you want us to go, to wherever you want us to go, and talk to us about your early years or your birth story or just your young life growing up.
Okay. Good question. My mother and father are both artists and performers. My father and uncles had a dance company called the Africa One Dance Theater, Egbe Omo Anago Dance Company, based in Brooklyn. And their mandate was to promote, excavate, and retain traditional West African dance forms. My mother was a dancer and dance captain, female dance captain, you could say, in that company. So they did performances at the World's Fair and all regional, local performances. They were contemporaries and around the same time as Dinazulu and Chuck Davis and these legendary dance companies in Brooklyn. So that was what I was exposed to initially as performing. Traditional West African dance, drumming, music. All of my uncles are fantastic drummers, performers. My mother's a dance. So I was always around music. I was always around art. I was always around culture. And I think growing up that way, I viewed all forms of expression, all forms of Black and African and Caribbean expression as art and not as trends that are to be discarded. Right. And I think that's important because as I got older, the path that I was on was to be a drummer in the company. And, that epiphany moment you talked about, mine, I had a friend named Charles Lewis. I got to shout him out, Charles Lewis, Charlie Beats. And I was looking out my window and I was on the second floor and, guys hanging out in front of the building, playing around, doing things. And he did a wave. And all I saw, okay, he went, right? A wave. And it might not have even been that good, but he did a wave, right? And I remember saying, wow, that right there, that was magic. Not that the dancing I was around wasn't magic, but I was like, oh no, y'all playing around. Like, what is that? So that was the moment when I said, okay, not exactly sure what that is, even though I knew it was being done all around the city, all around the country. But I was like, friends of mine are doing it and I have access to it and they're that good. Okay, so like, that's it. And from that point on, I was a maniacal practicer and student of trying to get better. And, you know, mind you, this is not when you had dance studios. This is not pull up an app and show me how that is. So you learned by word of mouth, you learn by trial and error, you learn by being put on by your crew, by your friends, by your boys. Like, yo, you know, show me that. And okay. And they give you a little bit, and I run home and practice that and come back. So that for me was a huge turning point, the first turning point in terms of acknowledging there's something that is new and fresh, that is created by people that I know, I have access to it, and I like it, and I think I'll be good at it. You know? So in my area of the Bronx, there were crews and everyone was dancing, breaking, popping, locking. And in my area, if there were, let's say, 7 or 8 of us, right? I was like the 6th best. It was not just out the box, the one. And I went to a private high school in New York City called Columbia Prep. So I was going to school downtown with very wealthy white students. So part of it was like, you know, we know you, D. That's a little, you know, you cool. You live around here. You play ball. But like, you know, this right here, this dance stuff, this dance-ish, you know, I don't know. It might be a little hard. It might be a little rough for you. Because, you know, you can go down. And I was like, no. And that's why I referenced about the art. It wasn't just a dance that dance is played out. It was like, that's art. So if you are an artist, you continue to train and practice and develop your art so that at some point you attain a level of high level proficiency or mastery or whatever you have it. So I just never stopped, right? Long story short, I just continued, kept on practicing. And I believe if you put yourself in position to do work, you begin to meet people who are on that same frequency, that vibe that same way, and will allow you to move forward. So moving forward, just started going to places, meeting other dancers in the local scene, in the New York scene that were really, really good. I started getting better. I had a friend of mine who knew 2 dancers named Wiggles and Fable, very popular poppers back in the day. And he said, oh, they're starting a group. You want to audition? I said, oh, audition? Oh, of course. So, you know, the audition, let's say, was in 3 days. So, of course, I try to practice and learn everything that I didn't know in 3 days because I'm like, I'm going to get that much better in 3 days. Long story short, I go, I audition, and they're like, yo, you nice. You want to get down? I'm like, absolutely. That group was called the Rhythm Technicians, which then we changed our name to the Ghetto Original Dance Company, Ghetto Original Productions Dance Company. And that name is very important because the theory was that things from the ghetto are negative or bad or not progressive. And we felt at that time that things that are from the so-called ghetto are original. And it's from sometimes situations and people that have less opportunity, less options, that due to those circumstances, they are original. And the creativity that comes out can change the world. So we formed our dance company, and our dance company was literally designed and built to promote and focus on popping, locking, and breaking, right? To show those as valid dance styles and art forms. This is late 90s, mid 90s, late 90s. And at this time, you know, you had breakdancing in commercials, Burger King and Olympics and all these things. And we said, well, the way to gain real respect is to do something theatrical. The theater is a ground for legitimate work and art. And we, long story short, we created a show called Jam on the Groove. We wrote it, directed it, composed and choreographed it as a collective, right? And we had a lot of offers from various theater companies. We met with George C. Wolfe,
Mm.
We met with some producers who wanted to make it a film, and we decided to go and self-produce it. It was at the Minetta Lane Theater. I'm giving you all the history, right? So we opened up, I want to say either a month, 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after Noise Funk. So Noise Funk opened at the public, right? We opened at the Minetta Lane Theater, off Broadway. We had a very successful run, was well reviewed. We received a Bessie for a body of collective work, and we were also nominated for a Drama Desk for best choreography as a collective. So a lot of people don't know that. So I like to say that, you know, some young brothers, Black and Puerto Rican brothers from Bronx and Manhattan and Brooklyn and Harlem, created a company, self-produced, and put a show up that was a dance narrative. And through that job, that show, I met Jerry Mitchell, who is, of course, a world famous choreographer, musicals, theaters, film, everything. And Jerry was brought in as a choreographic consultant for the show. And Jerry said, you know, I can't do anything that you guys do because I don't. But what I can help you with is just like transitions and using your art form to tell stories. And that relationship paid off later. I'm just sharing that with you, not to drop his name, but to show like the connections and how serendipitous, I like that word, how things have always been. And from that, you know, show, we toured internationally. We had a Calvin Klein jean sponsorship. It was a pretty big thing. It didn't end the way a lot of us wanted it to, but it set me on the path of saying, not only can I do this, but there is an opportunity to tell our story using these dance styles and this movement style that people are not fully aware of, right? So from there, did a lot of industrial and corporate work. So from doing that work, I got to meet a lot of theater and musical theater people who were either on the production creative side or performers who would supplement their time not working in musical theater or on Broadway doing industrial work. That led to a meeting in an airport, random but not random, with Jerry Mitchell. Adesola, oh my, how are you? Good to see you. You know, I'm working on a film. It's called Marcy X. Damon Wayans, Lisa Kudrow. It's like a kind of a hip hop zany comedy take. But I would love for you to assist me because I know you from Jam on the Cruise. And we got along and I see how your mind works. Sure. So a few weeks later, I'm working with Jerry Mitchell on this film, Marcy X. Look it up. It's out there. I was able to, you know, my first film experience as an assistant choreographer and just really seeing how movement is done on film as opposed to theatrically. I was able to cast a lot of friends because we wanted authenticity. So we got some of the top at the time video people, you know, club people that all knew me. We're all in the same world. So the film was good, had a great experience. A few months after that, one of the producers called and said, hey, we're having auditions. We're auditioning young talent, young actors, and it's going to be a very small movement piece in this. Would you want to come in and just run this audition? Absolutely. It didn't say like, oh, I have to call my agent. I just was like, sure, I'll come. Put together a routine, put the kids through it. I like children. I like joking around sometimes. So, you know, we're just joking and having fun. And the producer says, you know, and I didn't know what film it is. I just went in, right? On faith. He says, you know, we really love how you work with the children actors. And would you be interested in choreographing this film? Yes, thank you. Can I have another? So, and oh, by the way, what is the film? I just knew I was going in to audition young actors. Oh, it's called School of Rock with Jack Black. Oh. So I choreographed School of Rock. So when I tell people that, they're like, oh no, you didn't. I'm like, well, why is that a surprise?
Why is it a surprise?
And it's not, again, it's not necessarily, it's not popping, locking, and breaking. It's just, you look at the movie, there's the scenes when they're performing, the band is performing.
Totally.
Like all of that, right? Rockhead, all of that. And the great thing about it was the director allowed me to assist him in setting up camera shots. Richard Linklater. So I was able, in that short process, to get a deeper dive into filmmaking, and just to see how different people approach shots and how different people. So, and
Yes.
every opportunity that I've been blessed with and allowed to have, I've always been able to walk away with something, and people have been put in a position to say, "Hey, let me show you this. Let me show you that." And then that led to me still having the love for dance, wanting to transition into acting in a more serious, substantive way. That led to some small roles in films. I'm jumping. That led to a lot of some voiceover work, and that led to my manager at the time saying, "I have an audition for you." And at this time, mind you, LA, I'm like, I always will dance and move, but I think in order to make the transition a little more real, I'd rather not go out for a lot of dance stuff. Send me out for acting roles, right? Okay, great. So I have an audition for you. Great, what is it? It's for a Broadway show. Great, what is it? It's a dance. I'm like, you sending me out for these dance things? And I said, and she's like, no, it's the play's called Equus. They're remaking the play Equus with Daniel Radcliffe. So you'd be going out for one of the horses. It's a dance call. It's a dance call. However, they're also looking for potential understudies. So if you get past the dance call, you can get your act on. Great. So I went in, and with all transparency, she had to talk me to going into that audition because I didn't want to go. I was like, F that. You're trying to keep me back there, and I'm trying to go over there. But sometimes to get there, you got to go back there and go around. So I went, was fortunate enough to get through the dance call. And again, even in that process, the choreographer's name was Finn Walker from London, not your traditional musical theater choreographer, contact-based improv and modern. So a lot of what we did in that audition played to my strengths. I get cast. No, I get past the dance call, then I go into the acting call. And I was understudying the character Young Nugget, played by Lorenzo Pizzoni, British. So I put on my accent, I get cast. And then I'm looking around like, okay, so here you are, a native New Yorker who never had Broadway as an end goal, right? Because for many years, I didn't see myself or what I valued as art and my way of expression as being represented on Broadway. So it wasn't something that I was like, I'm going to be on Broadway. I'm going to be on Broadway. Where, as we know, many people move from wherever they live to New York, and that is a life's goal.
Yep.
And serendipitously, years later, I am in my first Broadway show with actors that I really learned a lot from, with talented dancers and actors, and it wasn't what I planned. And all of that just really led me and has guided me in the belief that do your work, focus on your work, and do not let anyone, yourself, your friends, your family, society, limit your means of expression. Because there was a time when many of my friends were like, oh okay, D, you nice, you get down, you could dance, but like, oh, now you want to act. Like, you should just stay, you stay in your lane. And I just felt there was more I had to express that I could express as an actor with my physical component. So Equus was great. Equus was my first Broadway experience. And I was like, now I see why Broadway is such a big thing. Not just for the quality of work, but you are literally in a society. You're in a group that means something. I do feel it feels different when you've done a Broadway show. Doesn't invalidate it doesn't invalidate one if you haven't, but it does say, oh wow, like this is Broadway. Huh, I get it. Same time, I knew of a show off Broadway called Fela, right? And I was like, oh well, now that's a show I'd like to be in. That's the show I'm going to be in. That was something that I set my sights on. And again, going back to the family, my father and uncles have a record business called Makosa Records, right? They had the dance company, the record business. And they were the first label that imported and distributed Fela's music in America. They met Fela. He had been to the store. So I'm like, oh, they're doing a musical about Fela. Well, I have to be in this musical.
Exactly.
Met one of the cast members. She's like, you'd be good in our show. I'm like, oh, okay, great. So tell my manager, now this is what I want to get in. Get me on this audition for this. The audition was a whole other thing. But basically, I went in to understudy. Now I knew that they had Sa, who originated the role off Broadway. So I was like, well, they're going to have an understudy. Why wouldn't they hire me, right? Had never done a Broadway lead, right? But I'm like, well, I know the role. I can act. I know Fela, which I'm sure a lot of people have felt the same way. I go in audition. I do pretty well. They call me in for a dance call. Aha. Once again, at one point, I was like, hey, dance thing, I'm going to act. But it was dance, right? That got me in there. Because in the dance call, they, I guess they decided to have an understudy, right? For the two actors they cast as Fela. But this understudy, they probably, I'm sure, wanted to get their money's worth, so they had to be able to move and dance. And that is where I excelled. So I was cast, very thankful, got to be in Fela, and it's dance that got me in there. So eventually, things happened. I was able to begin to play the role, went on twice on Broadway, went on a lot during the international and national tour. And then when it came back to Broadway the second time, I was the main Fela.
Wow.
So that's been the journey. And it has always been about preparation, a lot of belief, because I could not say that I went to school and have a BA in theater or an MFA in theater, but I'm doing theater, and I'm very fortunate and thankful to do it at a very high level. But all that I've done prior to that, the dance work, the acting work, the being on set and just speaking and never feeling that I got it made, that I'm in a position to look down on people. And I tell friends and anyone that I meet who will listen to me, I think one thing that us theater people, and not just theater people, but artists in general, have to be careful of is the feeling of, I have done this, therefore this is going to happen for me, right? Oh, what's your background? Well, I just finished Yale MFA. Great. And that is great, and I'm not diminishing that in any way. But what I am saying is, sometimes people feel certain steps guarantee an outcome, and I think that's a recipe for disaster and disappointment. So I just I keep moving and keep pushing. I told you how Skeleton Crew happened. There's been a resurgence now in a lot of movement and choreography work that I've been fortunate. Again, I'm always saying I'm grateful and fortunate to have these opportunities. I was able to do Colored Water at the Public Theater, which is an amazing piece. I was able to do movement for Cold Country, which is at the Public, and it's now at the Cherry Lane Theater. A lot of workshops. So I feel that I'm in a very a good position in terms of having the balance of getting acting opportunities to be performing, and then being on creative teams as a choreographer and movement director. So, but it hasn't been easy, and I can't say that I had a plan in terms of I'm going to be doing Broadway, I'm going to be doing television work. My plan, my initial first thing was like, I'm going to be in a great, dope, fly, lit, pop and locking group. After I saw my friend Charles waving, that was a definite idea. I'm going to learn that. I'm going to be incredible at that. And I'm going to be known as, when I walk in a spot, that's he gets busy. That was it. Everything else was move through. Oh, I'm good at this. Let me learn this. I'm not good at that. And walking down different roads without thinking that I belonged because I had something in my back pocket, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
Okay.
Ooh, child, Adesola, speaking of recipes, I often, first of all, I think of these conversations, these Celebrate conversations, as food, spiritual food. And it's always very, like, I love listening to all the ingredients that go into making the artist, right? Or the performance that I saw. And this makes so much sense. I mean, there's so many things that you just shared that I'm like, oh, right. That was so present in your performance in Skeleton Crew, right? From the popping and the waving and the locking to the group, the technicians group that you were a part of, you know, like all of that. I love listening to the ingredients that make up the recipe that is the artist and the work. So that's one thing. And thank you for giving me that, like, jumping through that journey. Like, I love it. 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 Again, it all just makes so much sense spiritually and also artistically. I am curious to hear you talk a little bit more about growing up as a young person, or just growing up or being from the Bronx. Like, just what was life like, you know, outside of working as a dancer or a mover? Like, what was just like everyday life like back then?
Okay. Well, I'm going to say it felt normal, but I have to, couch that.
Mm-hmm.
So the way the city is now, the way the city was 20 years ago is different, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know that it was more dangerous,
Mm-hmm.
and you felt just that anything could happen almost at any time.
Mm-hmm.
I never felt like afraid or nervous. I never felt like walking out down the street that something would happen to me, but you had a certain, maybe an additional set of antennas that were up because you just had to be aware, right? I do think that the racial issues, I'm talking late 90s, late 80s, mid 90s, 90s, the racial issues felt less pronounced to me. Now, maybe, younger and some things kind of fly over your head. You don't really pay attention to them. I did go to a school that was not in the Bronx, that was in Manhattan. So I was kind of in between two worlds, a very wealthy, upper class, not upper middle class, upper class, white private school institution. So, there were some racial things that I had to deal with very blatantly at a young age that I think very quickly made me realize that people are not going to like you or not accept you for reasons that have nothing to do with you.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
But knowing that and having the background and parental support that told me it doesn't matter. Don't diminish yourself. Don't feel less. Respect people and keep moving. If they don't respect you, ignore it once maybe. After that first time, deal with it. And this is not physical, just a matter of standing up for yourself.
That's
knowing
right.
who you are and being grounded in who you are so that you cannot be shaken.
That's right.
And I think growing up in any part of New York City, right? Bronx, Brooklyn, Harlem, Queens, Staten Island, there's a certain, I think, grounded solidity that you have that people feel, whether you come across as like laid back or calm or like super aggressive type A. I think that growing up in where I grew up grounded me and gave me a sense of solidity. And again, for me, friends were important, right? So, playing ball, going out in the street, and it was very competitive. So this is like, this hip hop hip hop. Hip hop is a broad umbrella term nowadays, right? I'm talking about right when people started calling it kind of hip hop. It was just what everyone did. So it was rough in terms of story, right? Went to a jam with a friend of mine. We had a mutual friend. My friend introduced me to his friend who knew me. So we kind of like, oh, you're Doc's friend. Okay, great. And this guy said to me, first day he met me, and he was a friend of my friend, not like someone that didn't know kind of who I was. Yo, you dance, you nice. I'll battle you right now. That's just what it was. Now, I'm not saying that's progressive, and all the things we talk about now, but that's what you could be subjected to. So knowing that, you just had to be a certain way. You just had to be like, all right, let's go. Not, oh my God, I feel threatened. Like, oh, that's what we're doing?
Let's go. Let's go.
So now, of course, no one walks through life like that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But having been put in those situations and knowing that it's a possibility
Mm,
gives you something, I think, that
mm,
is
mm,
a steeling, a
mm,
steel,
mm,
a metal, an
mm,
iron
mm,
that
mm,
allows you to, or
mm.
has allowed me to deal with things and not get too stressed and maintain an even keel until
Yeah.
I don't have to maintain an even keel, or until I
Hmm.
choose to not maintain an even keel.
I love that. Yeah.
And then you deal with things as they are. But I think growing up in the Bronx, you also, very important, you saw the love
Mm.
of working class people,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because people were working to make
Mm-hmm.
ends meet,
Mm-hmm.
people were working to get from day to day. And
Mm.
this is not like a, woe's me, nobody knows the trouble I've seen situation. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a
Mm-hmm.
fact. You had,
Mm-hmm.
Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Jamaicans,
Mm-hmm.
Trinidadians, Africans,
Mm-hmm.
Nigeria. You had people from all over the world in
Mm-hmm.
an area, and you saw that people are all trying to do the same thing, right?
Yeah,
And
that,
it
yeah.
really forced you to be, or me, to be aware and mindful of the differences in people,
Mm,
but
mm,
not let those differences keep me away
mm-hmm.
and looking down at people, as opposed to my first few years in high school when it was like, oh, only reason you're here is because we have quotas, and by ninth grade you're going to be kicked out,
Mm-hmm.
which was said to me the first week I was in school,
Mm,
right? By a classmate, seventh grade. So I got home. I said, Mom, this kid said this to me in school. Why you sent me to that school? She said, Well, do you think he's smarter than you? No. Why do you think he said that? I don't know. Well, that probably wasn't him. Seventh graders normally don't talk about things
mm,
like that.
mm,
That's probably people around him,
mm,
family, parents. So why you're going to that school? One of the reasons is so that you will understand you might have to deal with this in life.
mm,
And now that you know what it is, you know how to deal with it, rather than be 20, 30, 40 and be shocked and appalled and not know how to deal with these kind of people
mm,
who do
mm,
think this way. We can look
mm-hmm.
back at the last election and we know what it is.
We know what it
So
is.
I was put into a situation where I was forced to be confronted with things that I maybe didn't like, but that was able to overcome at an early age. And so there's no fear, there's
Mm,
no trepidation,
mm, mm.
because when you know who you are and you're solid in that, you can't be shaken
Mm-hmm.
and you can't
That's
fall.
that's
Yeah.
solidity. Oh God, I love all of that. Thank you for that so much. Yeah, I love, thank you for your mommy. And her
Amen.
wisdom
I share. I
and
share.
that experience. Thank you, mommy. Thank you, mommy. Celebrate mommy. I love that so much. And I love your healthy perspective and real perspective on those experiences. Another thing I want to tease out really quickly before we move this thing forward is you mentioned you said something earlier about, I knew that what I was doing was an art form, a thing all its own, and I wanted to I saw it as art, and therefore I thought about the theater as a place
Mhm.
to legitimize it or set it. My
Mhm.
question is, was there any first of all, do you have any siblings? This is something that's been ringing in my head.
Yes, I do. I
Okay,
have
so you weren't the only
one.
child.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Older. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And I am curious about, did you have any theater experiences growing up? Like, did you see shows? Did you do a play in middle school or?
Um, I I might have been in one play in
Mm-hmm,
middle school.
mm-hmm,
I did not go to theater. My performing and theater experience was through the dance company,
mm-hmm,
my
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
father
mm-hmm,
and uncles. So I was always in a performing creative space. I
mm-hmm,
would go see their shows. I knew what a
mm-hmm,
rehearsal was like every
mm-hmm,
Sunday.
mm-hmm,
Go to Brooklyn, rehearse,
mm-hmm,
and sit and watch. So I
mm-hmm,
understood what that was about.
mm-hmm,
And again, going back to like the transformative power of hip hop,
mm-hmm,
take it for granted now, but
mm-hmm,
you get like top or well-known people in various styles,
mm-hmm,
top breakers and the
mm-hmm,
top poppers and movers, type A cats,
mm-hmm,
and you put them all together and you
mm-hmm,
say, make a 5-minute piece.
mm-hmm,
That might not seem like a big thing now, but when this was still in its infancy and kind of defining itself, that was a lot of fights, a lot of beef, a lot of, nah, that step is whack. I ain't doing that step, like all of that. So I believe that we have all the ability to make art in whatever chosen discipline we are in. I think when you want something enough, you make the sacrifices to make that art. So to your question directly, I did not see a lot of theater. I was not going to productions. I was not, going to see Lion King. And I knew of things. I remember there was a show, The Mystery of Edwin Drood with Bill Irwin, because Bill Irwin worked with us years back. Things like that. But I wasn't in the theater every weekend. People were busy. People were working. And we don't have time for theater, right? So we were doing what we did. But we got together and we believed in it and we figured it out.
Yes. Yeah.
And we set a template for ourselves that allowed all of us to do various things in our work and career to this day.
Yeah. Thank God you didn't see theater so that you could have all of those experiences. Thank God. That's all right. That's my thought. I'm sorry. That's my thought. I'm like, thank God you didn't see theater every weekend, so that you could have all the rich experiences you had. That's so important. I think that's so important for us to celebrate not being exposed to theater too soon. Not being, you know what I mean? Like in that traditional sense, so that we can live a life and have other experiences, and again, acquire all these different ingredients that will make the recipe and make the food taste uniquely ours. And you follow what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So like, thank God for that. Thank God for that. And you certainly, again, I certainly see and feel that through your work. I feel there's a sense of originality, and there's some other things feeding it that are not just like, I took a Broadway camp class when I was 6. You know what I mean? In the spirit of lightheartedness and celebrating together, celebrating you together, what are some of the, and also getting to know you better, what are some of your favorite things? Like what's your favorite city, your favorite food, just like simple stuff?
Okay. I'm a foodie. I love food. I love Jamaican food. I love Italian food. I've become a huge fan of Thai food. I make a joke that, back in the days, Chinese food was everything. Now, you don't really see, it's Thai food. After poor Chinese restaurant, they must be mad unless they're in Chinatown. So I'm a big food fan. I'm a big sports fan. Sports was big growing up. So I also view a lot of my work through the athletic lens. So in terms of my training, physical training. So I love sports. I love boxing. I love baseball. I'm not far from Yankee Stadium, so I'm a Yankee fan. I played baseball coming up. At one point, I thought like, I had a scholarship to a Division II school to play baseball. So big baseball fan. I love anything that is artistic. So for me, dance, choreography, fashion, art, architecture, those are all different sides of the same sphere of a football. So I love all of those things. So, fashion, architecture. I don't draw well, but I love architecture. I love walking through the city, through Soho, and just looking at buildings, taking pictures. I love ice cream.
Yes, right? I know. I know.
Ice cream.
I know. Me too. I know. I love ice cream too. I love that. Did you go to college, Adesola?
Yeah, I went to Long Island University, Brooklyn, downtown Brooklyn campus.
Nice. And what did you study there?
I studied business. I studied business. And, and again, I wasn't in the theater or arts department there, but years later, I've taught at NTI. Last summer, I did a movement workshop there. I've taught at Howard, thinking related movement workshop. So again, things have brought me back to the educational world. I think to your point, my approach is a little different. So I think there's a space that people can be inspired and learn from. But my thing has, and I will not say self-taught, because I've been assisted and helped along.
Right.
But my journey and path, which is still being moved through, has been very non-traditional. That's non-traditional.
Non-traditional. That's exactly. Thank you for that. That's exactly what I'm I was trying to say about celebrating the non-traditional paths to Broadway and to theater and to where we all find ourselves in any given moment. Right. The non-traditional paths. I love that, Adesola. I think, I mean, yeah, listen, you started the whole thing off. We started the whole thing off by talking about Skeleton Crew. There's really nothing else to say. I just want to make sure I take a moment, one more again, to say thank
Come
you.
On now. Come
one
on
more
now.
again for the brilliant storytelling and art and work and energy and spirit and embodiment and rigor and passion you brought to that piece. I mean, I have to tell you, I loved hearing you talk about Ruben sort of mandating everybody to do more and bring more, because of course I saw it in 2016, as I said, and this time it felt more. It felt more. It felt more alive. It felt more palpable. It felt more intense. It felt larger. It felt more beautiful even. It was just stunning. And, you know, I celebrate you and Ruben, and I love that you talked to us about sort of the genesis of that connection and how y'all first met, you know. So listen, it really is just a thank you and a congratulations for your work in Skeleton Crew and for all of your incredible work on this journey and all the work that you're about to do. I'm glad that you are entering into a season of what sounds like, you know, abundance, continued abundance, and just all the things, and I love it. Yeah, Adesola, child. Ooh, it was just, I mean, I can't even imagine that production without you in it. So, and also the brilliant J Keys. I mean, that music, that original music, I think you mentioned his name earlier, or
you know, just to talk to that really quickly.
Yes, please.
Again, coming from not limited to, but initially my biggest inspirations and influences are African movement music as a whole, specifically West African forms and hip hop, right? Hip hop / R&B. And we know, right? We are moved by and respond to and interact with the music. So it doesn't happen in a vacuum, right?
That's right.
Jimmy and I and Chesney Snow, the beatboxer, and Rob Kaplowitz, sound designer, we go in our own room. And he'd be like, okay, so this is my idea. What do you think about this? And I'd be like, oh, that's dope. You know what? Could that snare be louder? Because if that snare is louder, then I want to bang harder. Bang! I want to hit that harder.
Yeah.
Or that's a new track. Well, and we would go and pitch this idea to Ruben. Ruben, this is a different sound that wasn't in the previous iteration at the Atlantic. But it's kind of like I could do some like wave, some legato. Okay, I like that. So it all stemmed from the collaboration of what music are you laying down? How does that make me feel? And based upon how it makes me feel, I will then take that feeling, try to physicalize and manifest my feeling into movement. So it doesn't happen without the music. And I think that's a big thing that people, again, as I wave the hip hop banner, we respond to the music.
Yes, we do.
And what the music tells us to do, if we follow that guideline, we cannot lose. But we have to be tied in and tapped in and be open to investigate those sounds. Investigate, well, am I clapping on the 2 or am I clapping on the 1? Don't clap on the 1. This clapping 1. 4, right? Clap on the 2. Okay, well, if I'm doing that, then I want that to be, can you get more of a bass drum on that 2? Got it. Now, when I do that, it's making me respond to the frequency of that bass drum that's harder. I've got to hit it harder. And once you start building every movement in a granular fashion, when that piece is fully developed, it gives me the place come in and be like, well, if that snare is crisp, my movement has to be crisp to relate and combine with that snare. So Jay, all that to say, the music is what made it all possible. And Ruben's brilliance and level of specificity about what he wanted. Last story, because I got stories. One night we did the show, and the top of the show, I would come out and do my whole thing at top of the show, right? And Ruben said, Ade, tonight what happened? He's a little off. And I went in our dressing room and I said, another cast member, he's like, how was it? I said, I was a little I felt I just wasn't hitting it the same way I would like to. I said, but no one probably noticed. I said, but I noticed because I know what I'm doing, right? In our post-show breakdown, it was in previews. Ruben said, Ade, you was a little. I said, oh, shit. He saw it. Mm-hmm. And that's not something that a normal person would see because it was a very subtle thing that I was just didn't hit it the way I had been hitting it all along. And I said, And it kind of bothered me. Not that he saw it, but that I was like, okay, so what happened? Okay, what happens? That next day, I kid you not, LA, all morning, I was like, okay, so tonight, this opening where you have said you want to tell the whole 2-hour show in 2 minutes. You want to give a snippet of Faye, of Shanita, of Des, of Reggie in 2 minutes. You got to hit this. So I went. That night after that show, Ruben said, and Ade, what the hell? Like, I've never seen you do it. I was like, But it's the brilliance of him seeing it and the mindfulness of him saying, yeah, like, it was all right, but wasn't what I'm accustomed to see you do. And that gives me the gift to go deeper. So then that became my floor. If my floor was this before, now the floor just went up. I can't go below what I just did. Every night, in all 6 of those pieces, I was challenging myself to pick it up. So some people like, the thing what I did with Muddy Water with Faye when I was, like doing the James Brown. Some people, that was their favorite. Some people, the breakdown was their favorite. Some people, everyone had a different favorite, but I had to think that someone's going to walk away with one of these pieces as as what stays in their mind. So I didn't take anything. There was no nights off.
No nights off.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So the way I like to wrap these conversations up is by asking 3 questions.
Okay.
First of all, what does it mean to you to be celebrated?
To be accepted, to be seen for who I am in all its variety and complexity. Part of that is what I do, but it's not the whole me. Who I am, as opposed to, I've done this, celebrate me. Well, we have a lot of people who have done great things professionally, but there are other things, as we know in this new world we're living in, then they did. So it's more about who I am as a human being.
What? Oh, yes. What or who do you celebrate?
I celebrate my mother. I celebrate my father. I celebrate all the ancestors who have come before me, who have allowed me to do this work. I celebrate my grandmother, who left Jamaica at a young age, the eldest of 13 brothers and sisters who came here and worked, and eventually was able to bring 9 of her brothers and sisters here. I celebrate my grandmother greatly.
And finally, Adesola, what do you do to celebrate you?
I give thanks. I allow myself now to know that all the ups and downs are part of a plan. I lay my ass down and relax. That's something that we, as a people, I think, always struggle with. Chill out, take it easy.
Yes, chill.
But I give thanks to the spirit that resides in my head, the spirit that connects me to the higher force. And I take those moments of rest. I play with my son. I spend time with my partner, and I'm just constantly grateful, and looking forward to more opportunities to be grateful. When I get more opportunities to be grateful, then things are happening, rather than I'm looking forward to things happening. Let me be grateful about something, and that could be a small thing, but to be grateful about something.
Yeah. Woo, child. Listen, first of all, I feel you so much on that. I am grateful for this conversation. I'm grateful to share this space with you. I am extremely grateful for your existence, for your artistry. And again, Celebrate for me is about saying thank you to the people whose work has really shifted something in me on a cellular level. And your performance in Skeleton Crew and your energy every time I bump into you on the street always does that. And I thank you for that. And I want to let you know, and I just have to let you know one more time, we love you. I love you, Adesola. I'm grateful for you. I love that you exist and that you're having this moment. And thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. On behalf of the entire community, thank you for that incredible, muscular, beautiful, and powerful performance and all the work you put into the performance. And today you've kind of given us a walkthrough of all the work, right? It's not just one process or one rehearsal or one show, right, as you just kind of said, right? It's all of the who I amness, right, that feeds it. So thank you for that beautiful telling, and thank you for this moment, brother.
Thank you, LA. I appreciate it. And I, all the times we run into each other, hopping out of the car in Harlem, So.
Exactly.
I really appreciate it, and I'm grateful for this opportunity.
Same, brother.
Yes,
same.
Yes.
Thank you, Adesola. I'll see you around soon.
Okay.
Thank you, brother. All right. Take care.
Take care.